So when I used to work for an investment bank, there was a trick that we used to use called the Mexican Telcos trick, and it doesn't really have anything to do with Mexico or telecommunications. All it was that if you had an investment to show to a client and it didn't look very good, you would compare it to another investment or a sector that looked really bad, and by comparison, your investment would look all right. And I guess whoever came up with this trick must have done it at a time when the Mexican telco sector was having a really bad year and pretty much anything looked good if you compared it to the Mexican telco sector. And here's the thing, this trick, stolen from the world of investment banking, is exactly what Boris Johnson and his government are using to sell us this shitty, unbearable lockdown. The message we're getting is, what would you rather, thousands of people die from Covid-19, or would you rather have this horrible, unbearable lockdown? And the media are just running with this like it's a reasonable debate to be had. And it feeds into two huge sets of lies. So the first thing is this, lockdowns are not the only tool that we have in fighting coronavirus. There's a whole bunch of other things that we should be focusing on and demanding. First of all, track, trace and isolate. So the first two we spent a fortune not sorting out, despite the fact that countries around the world were offering us their successful systems for free. And the third one, isolate, we've never even tried. If you are diagnosed with coronavirus right now, the government orders you to go home to your elderly relatives, vulnerable family members, key workers that you live with. Like, the number one way that COVID is being spread is between members of the same household where they live together. Meanwhile, thousands of hotel rooms up and down the country are empty and could easily be repurposed to allow people to isolate and protect their families and the people they care about. It's so obvious. Secondly, testing. Testing is vital. Tests should be available to anybody who wants one anytime that they want one. In fact, we should be grateful if somebody is willing to take a test, because it's not people who've got symptoms who are the biggest risk of COVID transmission. It's people who don't have symptoms, because they're the ones who are well enough to go out and to continue going to work and so on and so forth. Thirdly, vaccinations. And look at us, weren't we the first nation in the world to approve a vaccine? Brilliant, great work, guys. Super impressed. What the press don't seem to be covering in quite as much detail is the fact that we are on schedule to be almost the last country in the world to complete our vaccination programme. There are places around the world talking about having the whole country immunised within a few months. And honestly, we've heard autumn. And that is assuming that Boris Johnson and co keep to their word. It's assuming that there aren't any hiccups. It's also assuming that it doesn't turn out that some large chunk of the vaccination money has been given to some company run by somebody Boris went to school with who has never actually done a vaccination in their life but owns a set of the board game Operation. The second lie that this shit on toast or shit in a sandwich choice sells to us is the idea that lockdown is this monolithic thing, that lockdown is always the same. In fact, lockdown as a term has been used from the start of this pandemic to refer to a huge range of different things. In the UK, our lockdown has been very lax when it comes to businesses and the economy. Even now, even if you're not a key worker, not an essential worker, but you just cannot work from home, you are still told you must go to work. So building sites are open, warehouses are open, factories are open. Meanwhile, on the social side, we've had a very, very draconian lockdown, very tight limits on the number of people you can meet, very tight limits on the ability to socialise or visit those that you care about, support people when they're going through key moments in their lives. I was talking to a friend of mine who's in Zurich yesterday, and she was just absolutely gobsmacked to hear that at one stage of the situation in the UK, shops were open, like non-essential shops, but you weren't allowed to meet up with friends. And she was like, but surely meeting with a few friends is so much more, something we care about so much more than buying luxury non-essential items. And I was like, yeah, why did we do that? Why didn't we tell people that they were allowed to meet up with one or two friends, but not allowed to go and buy jewellery and watches and clothes and things that we could get by without for a bit longer, actually? But in fact, this is a very deliberate choice by Boris Johnson, because what they're actually trying to do is to convince us that we have to accept this really, really painful lockdown, and to make it seem unbearable, and to make it seem like we're going through a lot, because it makes it seem like he's done a lot, and it also makes it seem as though it's legitimate for us to push back and say it's too much. And then, in response, he can open things up for the businesses that he actually cares about. So he's delighted to be pushing this choice of rubbish or rubbish on us. And we need to get away from it. We need to stop taking sides in that debate and start saying, hang on, let's look at all the other things that we can do that will actually get us to the end of this crisis and actually improve people's lives in the meantime and once we get to the end. Because right now, with the options we've got, I'd rather be in the Mexican telcos sector. See you next week.